Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We are told that there were 16 major civilizations spawned global cultures. I'm talking to and I represent one of the two living ones. Now, the question is, why are we living and why did others perish? And this is a question that gnawed me for a long time. And I heard about the great historians writing about the wonder that was India. And I grew up in an India that actually effectively killed that wonder. And I realized that there is an architecture to what we call civilization and culture. And that starts with wonder. That wonder leads to gratitude. That gratitude leads to curiosity. And that curiosity leads to a sense of ownership. What we do at Bṛhat is to try and stitch these four elements together. How do we bring back that sense of wonder in our culture? How do I tell my child that you are living something that has been passed on for 5,000 years? We struggle to create something that exists even for 3 to 4 days. How did the civilization create something that has been passed on? And then when you try and unpack this, you get a drishti, right? And marketers, we are talking about a brand showcase under the umbrage of the largest global civilizational brand there ever was, there ever will be, that is Sri Rama. So we are only seeking umbrage under that. But you do get a sense of why this thing persists. And that is because you have an architecture of the truth, the dissemination of the truth, and the mechanisms and the embodied essence of the truth speaking to us in every part of this land. You walk from south to north, east to west. There is no place in Bharat that you will not call your own. Forget the politics of the regional kind, but the culture, the immersion that we have, and the vision that this civilization gives you ties us all. Now, the question is, how do we avoid such heroic acts? Heroic acts are great. It is very, very important that we have such highly conscious civic action groups which are working on culture. But the problem is upstream. What generated that degeneracy in the first place? So when you try and understand how the civilization which has continued and had this architecture has degenerated into a state of indifference, into a state where we are not able to tell our kids that they represent something moral, that is something elevating. What is the issue here? So this is the question that birthed the idea of Bṛhat about linking culture, public policy, and leadership development. We do three things. We tell stories about culture. We tell them in the written form. We tell them in the visual form. We tell them in the audio form. We consult with other creative organizations who are doing cultural work. We look at collaborating. Anandaji spoke about the master skill that is required for us to be able to pass the culture on to our children. That is the art of collaboration. So we try and collaborate with other purveyors of culture. And we try and ensure that the cultural dissemination seeps in at a personal level. When we actually become aware of the inheritance that we have, when we have that sense of gratitude, then you will not see a stepwell that has degenerated in the first place. But to do that, you need to get to also the policy linkage. You need to understand how the state functions. You need to understand the way decisions are made. But even more fundamentally, we need to get down to how we are taught, how we understand knowledge, and how we receive knowledge. So we do two things on that side. We tell cultural stories about our festivals, about our utsavs, about our civilizational icons, about our civilizational enemies as well. It's very important to get comfortable with the idea that there is the other. While there is also the spiritual realm, there is a very, very fundamental and very real worldly realm that we also need to inhabit. So we tell stories across all realms: political, social, philosophical, spiritual, cultural. And then we try and link that to policy, particularly in education. We work very closely with every institution that's doing its bit to try and disseminate Indic knowledge systems so that we don't then have to discover alternate means of rediscovering ourselves after a protracted journey back home. So we work on building curriculum for Indian knowledge systems, particularly in higher education institutions. We work in spreading the public narrative about Indian knowledge systems. We need 5 stakeholders to come together on this. You need the policymakers to understand that it is public policy rooted in Indian knowledge systems that is going to give us the future, not just for Bharat, but for the rest of the world. You need the academic leaders to understand the importance of this and take the bold step to actually commission certain courses, to create a virtuous cycle where the scholars of this kind, the mesmerizing impact that they have on audience like us, they can walk into a university and start teaching this per force. It need not be a separate event. You need industry leaders to start appreciating that it is the culture that holds their business together as well. You need parents to pay respect to culture. And finally, you need the young people to start acknowledging and respecting their inheritance. So we need these 5 stakeholders to come together. This is what we call public policy, influencing all of them through public narratives. But to do all of this, it does not happen automatically. It requires people who embody that consciousness. And that is the true work that we have as a generation, which is transitioning to build that ownership into people. So the third part of our work is to actually train young people on the civilizational frameworks, to give them the idea of the Shatrubodh and the Swayambodh and make sure that their learning process is rich and their ownership endures. Thank you. We are Bṛhat.